Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Awaken Authentic Self. If you're watching me for the first time, I welcome you. If you are an existing subscriber to this channel and you support me, I thank you for being here today. Today it is January the 14th on a Tuesday, and I believe this is the first car edition chronicles, right, that I've done in the year 2025. I don't always do a whole lot of YouTube videos as some YouTube people do, and that's simply because I only jump on here when I feel like God is leading me to get on here to say something. I just don't want to get on here and ramble on about nothing. But today I want to talk about the underdog. Like, I believe for some of you all that can relate to what I'm about to talk about, this may apply to you. If it doesn't apply to you, it may have applied to you in the past, it may apply to your present, or it may apply to you in the future. But I believe this is the year of the underdog. And have you ever heard of that term, underdog? It simply means, pretty much in my own words, a person who may have not been fortunate, a person who has not always had a lucky break in life, people who are not particularly picked by man, but yet they're chosen by God, right? I was just looking at a quote and it said, imagine not being picked, but being chosen. So I just had to sit back and think about that for a second. Let's just think about what that actually means. Imagine not being picked, but being chosen. See, what that means is you may not have been picked by man. As growing up as a little child, maybe you were the one, when it came time during your recess class, when the teacher said, everybody pick who you want to be on your team to play basketball. Everybody pick who you want to be on your team to play dodgeball. And you may have been the last kid standing, meaning nobody wanted to pick you. So the teacher had to just say, you know what, go on to that team. Go on to team A or go on to team B. So you may have had a series in your life, a repetitive pattern in your life where you were never seemed to be picked or favored by man, but yet you are chosen by God. So that's what that quote means. Imagine not being picked, but being chosen. They may not have picked you at that job, but God chose you for that position. They may have said you're not qualified to do that job, but you were chosen. Perhaps your family, your spouse's family may have not have picked you for that spouse, but God chose you to be that husband or to be that wife for that person. See, I'd rather be chosen by God than picked by man, because man will miss it every single time, because only God can see the heart. God looketh on the heart, right? But man looks at the outer appearance. That's how God knows if you're qualified for anything he wants to use you for. It's based off of your heart. He knows, and he knew that some people just ain't got the heart to do the thing that he called for you to do. Some people would have given up already. Some people would have thrown in the towel. Some people would have left everybody hanging. And see, God was able to trust you. So I believe this is the year of the underdog, the ones that people overlook. Every situation, in every circumstance, always overlooking someone. If you think about in the Bible, I believe it was the story of Joseph and his, he was the one who was favored amongst all of his other brothers by his father, in his household, but he was the younger brother. And so his older brothers were jealous of him because his father favored him, right? He was not picked by his siblings, but he was chosen by his father. If you think about David, he was just a little old shepherd boy who tended to the sheep, cleaning up sheep dung and making sure the sheep were protected. And so when they were looking for a king or looking for someone to defeat the giant Goliath, they thought David would be the least likely to do it. Yet he was the one chosen to take down the giant. With just his slingshot and a smooth stone, he was able to, with precision, get Goliath, a big giant that killed people, right in the middle between the eyes, and knock him down and kill him. See, people will look at you, look at your small frame, look at your stature, and say to themselves, nah, I don't think that person's a fit. No, I don't think that person's going to work. But see, God has already placed in us the things that we're going to need to conquer every situation in our life if only we would believe, right? Because we are fearfully, marvelously, and wonderfully made. It makes me think of this scripture that God had laid on my heart. It says, and I believe it's in, I can't remember what it's in, but I'm not going to be able to quote this verbatim. But it talks about how God will remove the shame of your youth, the shame of your widowhood. So for all of the women who were left, maybe you were married and you were divorced, and people try to make you feel a certain level of shame because of that. Like you failed at something. Perhaps you were a good wife, you were a good spouse, or a good husband. I'm not just talking to the women out here. This also applies to the men. And you did what you were supposed to do, yet you had an unbelieving spouse who left you. God said he will take away the shame of your youth. He will take away the shame of your widowhood. Because see, this is the year of the underdog. If you grab and hold of this message, this can be your year. It's up to you. It's up to you in whatever you're going to do with it, right? If you're listening to me speaking today, right now, then this message is for you. The Redskins, right? The Commanders. Some of you don't know that I'm a Commanders fan, but I'm a Commanders fan. And one thing that is interesting to me about the team Commanders is that for so many years, this team was not doing well at all. They've suffered loss after loss after loss after loss. But through the years, they were able to be refined. They were able to get, I believe it's the draft pick. I don't know a whole lot about football. I just love the Commanders. But they were able to get, priority, because they were in a loss. They were able to get priority to select the top players. And so at the first of the season, I watched the first football game that the Commanders played this season. And it may not have been their best game, but just by watching the players, and I'm not like a jock, but I love the team, the Commanders. Just by watching, I could tell that these young men had potential. And I was like, wow, this is something special. This is something great. These guys are good. And sometimes we don't realize that many people are watching you who is the underdog, and they're looking at you and they're like, wow, I can't wait to see what that person becomes, because that person has something special. That person is going to be great. And although they may not tell you, keep doing the thing that you're doing, because you never know who you are inspiring. You never know who you're helping. And that's what it's all about. God will use, the difficult seasons in your life. He will use the things, your struggles, your pain, your trauma, for someone else that's going through that same thing, to minister to them, to let that person know that there is a way, there is a God. And by looking and watching your impossible situation, your impossible story, God will use your story for his glory. So never feel ashamed, because see, God said, I'm going to take away all that shame associated with all that pain that you've been through, associated with all that trauma that you've been through. Forget about what people said. You know, there's a lot of people out there that in their head, you are actually inspiring them. And they may not even tell you. They may just want to be quiet about it within themselves, and they may not want to share, you know, their struggles and what they're going through. But you don't even know that you are inspiring somebody that they be going through the same thing that you've already been through. So a lot of times what we go through, people, I think that was my earpiece that just fell. But a lot of times what we go through, we do not even go through those things for ourselves. And I know that sounds crazy, because you're like, what? I went through all of that and it wasn't even for me. But trust and believe, you're definitely going to get a lesson out of it, right? It's not, you know, like in vain, where you're not even going to get anything from it. You're going to get a lesson from every single thing you go through. But, you know, just like the Bible tells us that God's word is like a two-edged sword, you know, I believe it's like a 50-edged sword. Like, one word that God may release may mean one thing to one person, and something else to another person, and something else to a third person, right? And so what you're going through, or what you've been through, God will use that not only to perfect you, to teach you, but he will also use it to help your children, to help, you know, your family, to help the people who are around you, that are watching you. It's just so many ways and so many uses that God can use a person, that can use the situation that you've been through. You who is watching, you who is the underdog. Maybe you was not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, yet you've been able to acquire things. You've been able to accomplish something, right? And it's not always about, you know, material gain. It's about the ability to go from one state to a higher state, one level, and to evolve and to move up. Maybe you have evolved spiritually. You know, maybe God has given you a lot more wisdom and a lot more knowledge than what you had starting out. So I believe this is the year of the underdog. Just like the Commanders team, right? How they had to, you know, they started out as just having potential. But what I noticed is each game, they seemed to improve. They got stronger. You know, some of their little weak points, they were able to perfect. So God was working with them and using them. And just by watching that team, you know, I could just relate that team to my life prophetically, right? And how they had to even give up their name. How many of you out there, women, who may have been divorced and you had to change your name? You don't have to change your name, right? Technically, you know, you can keep the name. But if you changed your name for whatever reason, maybe you got remarried, and so you change the name, and God said, I'm going to disconnect you from everything that gave you shame in the past. You know, you may have had to leave people that you loved. You may have had to have left people in your circle that you cared about, and even family members, simply because they were bringing you down. You know, they were not believing in you, in where God was leading you to. And so they were holding you back. They were holding you back. And maybe a lot of people left you in your life, and it made you feel like, what is wrong with me? But nothing was wrong with you. You thought it was a rejection, but what it was actually, and I know this is cliche, it was God's protection, right? God actually caused those people to hurt you in such a way where you had to say, okay, enough is enough. You have to go. But God did that to elevate you. And see, what happened after God released toxic people from your life, you started to get blessed. You started to notice a change in yourself. You started to notice you attracted, people who actually cared about you, people who would actually be for you. A lot of times we think like we have to be loyal to people that we've known the longest. We have to be loyal, now I'm talking about how we think sometimes, to family members, right? Because blood is thicker than water. But this is not necessarily true, because see, God will lead you to those people who are going to accept you just the way you are as you come to them, from the beginning. Some people want to jump on the bandwagon, when they see you winning. Some people want to be your friend simply because they see you're doing well, you're reaching a level of, status or popularity. And this is why they connect with you. And then you have people from your past who seen you at your lowest, and so they can't even celebrate your success. They cannot celebrate where you currently are, because they're still where they were when you last, were in communication with them. And so you have people like that as well who will be haters, and they will not support you no matter what. So God said, we got to get you a whole new team. So you had to reposition people in your life. Some people you may have prioritized. God said, put them in the back seat. Put them in the back seat. They can't be priority. And then maybe God brought new people in your life, and he had to say, make that person, a little bit more priority. Not above God, of course, but put that person where they belong in your life. And so you may have went through a series of refining, getting better, and God working on you until, you're being transformed. And so now you're at the starting point of this line. And this is the year of the underdog. And now the underdog has risen up. The underdog has arisen. It is your time. I believe everybody who has a good heart, everybody that's been, behind the scenes, working on themselves, working on the hurt, correcting the areas of themselves that they need to improve. These are the people that I'm speaking to. These are the people who I'm casting my pearls before. So I already know, because I prayed, that this message is going to get to those right people. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. God is removing the shame. We all go through. This is life. Let the people watch. Because see, God will put an audience around you to watch you at your lowest point, to watch you when you are at rock bottom, simply because your life will minister to them when you reach the top. And so that is the purpose of it all. God is using your story for his glory. So we just serve an awesome, awesome, awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. And that's it, y'all. This is Awaken Authentic Self. Hit the like and the subscribe button. And I will see you back here another day. God willing.